The scene in Sarajevo where few seem to think anybody will give peace a chance.
Families shattered by accusations of child sex abuse that may never have happened. CNN Special Assignment Unit explores the issue of repressed memory. This is NewsHour. I'm Reed Collins in Washington.
And I'm Sharyl Attkisson at the CNN Center in Atlanta. Is the UN peace plan for strife-torn Bosnia worth more than the paper on which it's written? Under threat of U.S. military action, the leader of Bosnia's Serbs finally signed the so-called Vance-Owen peace plan this weekend. Whether his compatriots will lay down their arms remains a potentially bloody question mark. CNN's Christiane Amanpour reports from Sarajevo, a city where hope seems in short supply.
Sarajevo is burying its dead again. Sniper fire frightens the mourners. It's a mourning just like any other. Just hours after the Bosnian Serbs signed the UN peace plan, their artillery crashed into this city. Perhaps the gunners hadn't got the message. Perhaps they didn't care. It's not good, they say. We shall still fight. That was the message from Bosnian Serbs in their stronghold above Sarajevo, bitter at being forced into what they call an imposed peace. Soldiers who have manned their positions through 4 seasons say the army won't accept it, nor will the people.
We don't want to live with the Muslim, we don't want to live with the Catholic, and that is the truth.
A woman looks depressed and says the peace plan means nothing to her, a sentiment much shared by suspicious Sarajevans. If this is like all the other agreements, it'll mean nothing, he says. Our people are still dying, the whole world can see. Indeed, elsewhere in Bosnia, Muslims are on the move again. Last week, several hundred came to a government stronghold in central Bosnia, and UN relief officials say they expect another couple of thousand refugees to follow. All Muslims who say they've been harassed and intimidated out of their homes in Serb-held territory, and then forced to pay the Serb authorities for permission to leave. The US still holds the threat of force over the Serbs, determined that promises be turned into concrete action. The next act in this drama comes this week, when the peace plan must be ratified by the Bosnian Serb parliament, which has already rejected it twice within the last month. Christiane Amanpour, CNN, Sarajevo.
And at the White House this morning, President Clinton said he hopes that self-styled Bosnian Serb parliament will sign the Vance-Owen peace plan. If that happens, he hinted, then U.S. forces may be deployed.
We were not interested in sending our soldiers in there into combat, into a fighting situation, but that we thought there would have to be a peacekeeping force there and that we would be prepared to participate.
Well, if this peace holds, then, if Vance-Owen holds, you've got 10 provinces. Wouldn't that be a very difficult and dangerous mission for America and the United Nations forces?
It depends entirely on what happens between now and then. And before I agree to put one American soldier there, we're going to watch events, and I will obviously speak not only to you but directly to the American people about it.
Meantime, the U.S. Secretary of State Warren Christopher vows to maintain the pressure on the Bosnian Serbs. Christopher is in London now trying to build a consensus for military action if the fighting in Bosnia-Herzegovina can't be stopped any other way. His reading of the Serbs' present commitment to ending the bloodshed in the former Yugoslavia.
And we're hopeful that the signatures on the Vance-Owen agreement will prove effective, but we're all quite skeptical, and we're not going to be deterred. We're not going to be thrown off stride by these steps. We need to have deeds. We need to have action on the ground before we step back from these important new conversations we're having to determine what our next steps will be.
Officials in Rome say the U.S. Secretary of State has added Italy to his current diplomatic rounds in Europe. Also on his itinerary, Paris, Bonn, Moscow, and Brussels.
Ethnic conflicts like those in Bosnia underscore the importance of preventive diplomacy. This according to the U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations, Madeleine Albright, who testified before a House panel on Capitol Hill today.
If we let anarchy or ethnic conflict fester too long, if we permit either to spin out of control, the cost will always be much higher in the end to restore order. The burden will always be more unilateral. The cost of preventive measures applied collectively and early to quell a society's self-destructive instincts will always be much cheaper.
The chairman of that panel, the Democrat Tom Lantos of California, urged early intervention in the former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia to prevent ethnic unrest there.
The answer to one mystery at the cult compound in Texas is raising new questions. Just how did David Koresh die? His body was found near the kitchen of the Branch Davidian complex, and authorities say he was shot in the head. But they aren't able to say if it was suicide or something else. Identifying Koresh took several days.
How did we learn the identity of Mr. Koresh? Through extensive molds of his mouth. There was extensive studies done with regards to the molds of his mouth. Also x-rays, body x-rays in particular too, in regards to the wound that Mr. Koresh had received during the initial confrontation on February the 28th.
So far, only 6 of the 72 bodies recovered from the burned compound have been publicly identified, and all had been shot. CNN has learned about a chilling genetic experiment on native Alaskans back in the 1950s. Military researchers want to know if Eskimos had special genes that helped them endure the cold. They thought their thyroid glands may hold the secret, so they gave 102 Eskimos radioactive iodine to measure its effect. But they didn't tell the Eskimos the drug was radioactive. The doctor who ran the experiment back in the 50s says it was safe, but a senator calls it a breach of faith. You can see CNN's special report, Eskimo Guinea Pigs, at 2 p.m. Eastern.
The Senate Minority Leader Bob Dole virtually led the charge to derail the president's so-called economic stimulus package last month. The Texas Republican Phil Gramm, a first lieutenant. Their motive? Well, the budget director Leon Panetta offered an opinion of that last night on Larry King Live.
Presidential politics involved. Don't forget that both Senators Dole and Graham went up to New Hampshire. They were talking from New Hampshire. They've already started their presidential campaign. Some of that was involved. I think Republicans were sending Democrats a message that they had to start working with them. There were a lot of other messages, but the American people sat back and said, what about a jobs bill? Don't let it get caught up in this kind of stuff.
You think Dole is doing this because he's running?
I think part of the problem here is that presidential ambitions have entered into the ability to try to work some of these issues out.
Dole and some other Republicans had ridiculed the stimulus program for spending that they consider to be wasteful, building, for example, swimming pools. CNN has obtained a letter written by Dole last month which suggests previously appropriated funds might be used to convert a Wichita senior citizens home into a boathouse for the general public. And it was President Clinton who first made a reference to that in a speech Saturday night, saying that Dole had asked for $23 million for the project. A statement from Dole's office today says the White House really missed the boat on this one, adding, it's a $23 million lie, and there's no way the White House can defend it.
Just ahead on NewsHour, families torn apart over allegations of unspeakable horrors.
We are presumed guilty, that's it. There is no defense in a case like this.
A CNN special report on repressed memories right after this.
In our Monday report, repressed memories, or are they? Experiences, sexual often, and some other abuses, so traumatizing they have been forgotten and sometimes for many years. But are some of these long-buried memories not really memories, but nothing more than suggestions put forth by therapists? Thousands of parents say they're being falsely accused of long-ago abuses after their children, grown, went into therapy. More now from CNN assignment reporter Kathy Slobogan.
She said it started around 5 years old.
I supposedly drugged her mother so that I could take her out of the house at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning and abuse her.
The family's been ruined, but my daughter's been ruined more. She's lost her childhood. She's lost her parents. She's lost her aunts and uncles, you know, everyone.
4 years ago, Liz and Roger LaPlante's world was shattered. Their 33-year-old daughter told them that Roger had sexually abused her in bizarre satanic rituals.
I made her murder 3 babies, and she saw me murder so many she lost track.
It just didn't happen. The only one that abused my daughter, I think, was their counselors.
Roger LaPlante denies the abuse. He's passed a lie detector test supporting his position. There are no legal charges. But his daughter, who's not responded to an interview request, still believes her father's guilty because of memories she recovered during therapy. Memories she believes were repressed for nearly 30 years.
We are presumed guilty, that's it. There is no defense in a case like this.
The system doesn't work for people like us. We were accused, tried, convicted, and hung, sentenced without ever meeting anybody and even knowing it was happening.
The LaPlantes now have no contact with their daughter.
And I assume that you're either falsely accused or very artful liars, one of the two.
They've joined a support group of other parents who say they've been falsely accused by children in their 30s and 40s who didn't remember the abuse until they went to a therapist. There are now more than 3,000 of these families.
We didn't spend our lives raising our children and taking care of them for this to happen in the ages we're in now. We planned on spending time with our grandchildren, taking them on trips. They've taken our future away, is what's happened here. They've taken our daughter, who I mean, how do you describe a daughter? A daughter is love and caring, and they've just destroyed that.
They just kind of come in our life and laid this at our feet when I was a child molester.
Chuck Noah is a man determined to clear his name. A father of 5, grandfather to 10, he too is a parent accused by his daughter of sexual abuse.
I just don't want my little children saying Grandpa was a pedophile. I will not stand for it.
Chuck Noah has become a one-man crusade against the therapists he feels have brainwashed his daughter and others. 2 years ago, at the age of 33, she accused him of sexually abusing her when she was 6 years old. She says she remembered the abuse in therapy.
It all starts with therapists. It all starts with therapists.
She said, this is so awful that I have to call my therapist periodically to be sure it's true.
The Noahs raised 4 other daughters. All of them say the sexual abuse of their sister never happened.
We just know it's not true, and our dad did not do this. There were 5 girls in a bedroom. My mom didn't work, and she didn't have a car, and so I don't know. She doesn't explain a lot of it, but all of it is news to us.
Chuck Noah has also passed a lie detector test, but it's made no difference to his daughter or her therapist. They both refuse to be interviewed on camera. The Noah's daughter no longer sees them or comes to family get-togethers. Jean was the closest to her sister.
Yeah, I was shocked. What's it done to you?
No. All our friends used to say, how'd you raise such fine girls? What'd you do? All of a sudden, they're acting like we would allow little babies to be hurt and all these things.
These families are the underside of the crusade to save children from sexual abuse. For too long, child abuse was ignored and victims weren't believed. But now the pendulum may have swung the other way. Within the therapeutic community itself, there are fears that a significant number of therapists trained to work with incest victims may see sexual abuse where it doesn't exist. That in their zeal to uncover abuse, they may be inducing so-called repressed memories in vulnerable patients, memories which may be false. The theory behind repressed memory is that small children who are abused bury the memories because they're so traumatic. To get at those memories, therapists use techniques like hypnosis or getting the patient to imagine abuse that might have happened. And there are books, like The Courage to Heal, the Bible of the repressed memory movement. It says things like, if you don't remember your abuse, you're not alone. Or, if you think you were abused and your life shows the symptoms, then you were.
Keep going with it. She's got a hold of him. You're doing great.
There are many patients who believe in their memories, believe they are the key to their recovery.
I feel too disgusted. I can't believe that I met her when someone hurts me.
This is an incest survivors therapy group. Linda is symbolically confronting her father for abusing her, abuse she did not remember until she was 33, and which her father denies.
I didn't deserve it. I don't want you to ever touch me again. Ever.
Good. Say that again.
Did you ever touch me?
Great, great. Keep going.
Repressed memory therapy is one of the fastest growing trends in the mental health field. Many therapists who work in this area say false memories are rare.
The number of cases that I've seen where the memories are false are very, very, very few.
Psychologist Renee Fredrickson is a leader in repressed memory work.
I know there's a group that would like to believe and purports to believe that this problem is caused by therapists misattributing authenticity. And I wish that were true, but it hasn't been what I've seen. There are far more sexual predators than there are bad therapists.
The therapeutic community itself has difficulty overseeing what goes on inside the privacy of a therapist's office. The question whether some therapists are leading patients towards memories is a sensitive one and difficult to prove. Because such a large number of families have been wrenched apart through this process, we decided to go into therapy undercover. Before taking that step, CNN consulted a psychologist with extensive expertise in this area. We asked him to help us define symptoms for our undercover producer, which would not necessarily point to child abuse.
Basically, I've just been kind of depressed. I guess it started about 8 months ago.
Our CNN producer took a hidden camera to tape this therapist, whose identity we decided not to reveal. But she's typical of the type of therapist causing concern. She has counseled at least 6 people we know of who went to her for other reasons and came out accusing their parents of sexual abuse. The words here are her own, but we've substituted another voice.
You mean your sexual intimacy?
Yeah.
Our producer said her depression had affected her marriage and lessened her interest in sex. She discussed her family history, and the therapist asked about childhood memories. At the end of the very first session, the therapist suggested a diagnosis.
It seems to me that you have the symptoms of someone who could have experienced some sexual trauma.
Our producer never suggested she had been sexually abused and said she had no memory of it.
Do you get many women like this?
Many. Many.
And they forget?
Yes. Yes. They forget. They have no idea. In fact, I mean, what you've presented to me, Leanne, is so classic that I'm just sitting here blown away, actually.
The therapist then told our producer to read a book about repressed memories.
It didn't seem like me.
In a second session, our producer expressed strong doubts about the possibility of abuse. The therapist didn't force it, but she went on to describe how repressed memory works.
I mean, if something bad happened to you, I would think that you'd remember it.
You're right. You're right. If something bad happens, you really remember it. But if something too bad happens to you, so bad that you can't cope with it, you forget it.
In the last year or two, it has become a major theme amongst therapists, and a large number of patients and families have been drawn into this pseudo-memory and false memory business.
Dr. Paul McHugh is chief of psychiatry at Johns Hopkins Medical School and a critic of repressed memory techniques.
A witch hunt essentially identical in all of its forms to the Salem witch craze is occurring in our country now, and needs to be stopped, both to protect people, get people proper therapy, and to sustain the trust of our public in psychotherapy and psychiatrists.
Can a child forget sustained sexual abuse?
No. In our work here, in which we have proof that they were systematically abused, they remember.
Dr. McHugh is not alone. Memory researchers like Elizabeth Loftus have grave doubts about the validity of repressed memories.
False memories can sound very, very real.
Loftus is at work on an experiment where subjects are told by a trusted family member that they were lost in a shopping mall when they were small.
We convinced them that they were lost, that they were very unhappy, they were crying. We're seeing that people will adopt this suggestion, they'll elaborate upon it. 2 weeks later, they are telling you exactly where this happened. It was in front of the Hickory Farm store, and it looks exactly like a real memory.
But why would people be so willing to believe their own parents had abused them?
I thought it was the only way I could get better. That's what the books said.
you know, uncover more memories and more memories.
Melody Gavigan and Lynn Gondolf call themselves retractors. They're part of a small but growing network of former patients who say their abuse memories were false, created by therapists who pressured them to imagine abuse.
Did you have doubts?
Yeah, and when you ask them, they've got a good answer for that too. It's normal, it's natural, it's denial.
Why would anybody make up these memories if they weren't true?
Because it gives you a simple explanation for the pain that you're in.
If you go to the right therapist at a right time in your life, seeking an answer and believing the answers you're given, you're susceptible to this. This can happen to anybody. It's not people who have, quote, problems. This can happen to anybody.
You made me feel so ugly.
We aren't saying abuse does not happen. Abuse does happen. We are saying our daughter, we did not abuse our daughter, ever. Would not even think of abusing our children or anyone else's children. We love children.
The reality is there's a lot of child abuse, a great deal of which is never discovered. And there are many therapists who give their patients appropriate treatment. But if therapists tolerate accusations that are false and families are torn apart in the process, then the fight against the injustice of child abuse may be creating another injustice in its wake. Kathy Slobogan, CNN Special Assignment.
If you would like to write the CNN Special Assignment staff, the address is Post Office Box 2727, Atlanta, Georgia 30301.
And still ahead on NewsHour, Julio Gallo dies in an accident in California's wine country.
Millions of families struggle emotionally and financially with the cost associated with long-term health care. A new poll released today by the American Association of Retired Persons shows Americans are willing to pay more in taxes for a health care plan if it does include some long-term care. According to the poll of more than 2,000 Americans, 54% are concerned that in the future they or a family member will need help such as home care or nursing home care. 45% said they were not worried.
AARP urges President Clinton and the Congress not to ignore the lifelong needs of millions of Americans of all ages. The time has come to address long-term care. It isn't tomorrow. It isn't next month or next year. The time is now. Long-term care is no longer an option. It is a necessity for the American family. It must be included in health care reform.
The New York Times, that cites figures from government financial experts, reports today that the president's health care plan, the one still in the wings, may require as much as $150 billion a year in new spending, both from the government and from private sources.
16,000 steel and engineering workers went on strike today across eastern Germany, and some 10,000 more workers are due to join in tomorrow. It's the region's first major strike in 60 years. Work stoppages were virtually banned in communist East Germany and before that by the Nazis. This conflict is over management's move to revoke an agreement bringing wages up to Western German levels. In New York City today, a routine fire call turned into a murder investigation. 6 people died, including at least 2 children. A police spokeswoman says it appears the fire was set to cover up a crime. All 6 were taken from the East Harlem apartment alive, but died soon after. All suffered stab wounds.
The winemaker Julio Gallo has been killed in a Jeep accident on his farm in California. Julio Gallo was 82. His wife and granddaughter also were hurt in the accident. One survivor is Julio's brother Ernest, with whom he'd built the Gallo wine empire of Northern California.
Next on NewsHour, a recap of our top stories, plus a live business report from the New York Stock Exchange.
And coming up later on our program, On the Run from shin splints, we'll have news from Medicine Report.
And we'll have more news. We'll chew over the issue of whether sticky sweets really do rot your teeth. Stay.
Now recapping the top stories on NewsHour, the shelling of Sarajevo eases a bit following the weekend signing of that UN peace plan by the leader of the Bosnian Serbs. But the mood of Sarajevo remains bleak, many voicing doubts diplomacy really can stop the bloodshed. President Clinton says he's hoping the self-styled Bosnian Serb parliament will endorse the peace plan. He's pledged to keep the pressure on the Serbs and to judge their actions and not their words. Meantime, the Secretary of State, Warren Christopher, is making the rounds of Europe. His aim is to win Allied support for any military action if the Serbs of Bosnia do refuse to stop the fighting.
Kitty Pilgrim has our financial news from New York.
Thanks, Cheryl. Stocks on Wall Street are getting a lot of help from long-term interest rates. Right now, the Dow Industrials had been down 11. Right now, they are near their highs for the day, up more than 4 points at 34.32. Big board volume is heavy with 113 million shares traded so far. The other key indices are mixed. Bad news for manufacturing. The National Association of Purchasing Management Index dropped to 49.7% last month. That's far below analysts' expectations. Any reading below 50 suggests the manufacturing sector is contracting. And the construction sector offered no relief. Construction spending down 0.8% in March. Bad weather blamed for the decline. February's figure, however, was revised to a 1.2% increase, far better than the 0.1% rise originally reported. Bond traders today focusing on today's negative purchasing managers report. The Treasury's 30-year issue is up 30 seconds, the yield down to 6.87%. A strike of engineering and steel workers is hitting Germany at a bad time. Germany's leading economic think tanks are slashing growth forecasts for 1993 and urging the Bundesbank to cut interest rates further. The institute said lower rates will not fuel inflation or hurt the German mark. The U.S. dollar is lower against most major currencies. Right now it's down 1/4 pfennig against the German mark, down 1 1/4 cents against the British pound, and down 1/4 yen against the Japanese currency. Chrysler's chief financial officer is heading to IBM. Jerome York accepting the job of chief financial officer at Big Blue. York was at Chrysler for 14 years and helped turn around the third largest U.S. automaker. That's the latest in business news. I'm Kitty Pilgrim reporting live from the New York Stock Exchange.
Ahead on NewsHour, an investment in bonds pays big dividends in San Francisco. Jim Huber with that story and all the sports coming up.
I'm Sonia Friedman. What happens when a priest falls in love? Well, he's forced to leave the church that he says he still loves. He still believes he's a priest, but he's not permitted to perform his duties. Priests who marry later on Sonia Live following NewsHour.
Well, the urge to exercise seems to be a symptom of spring fever for a lot of people, some people anyway. Too many times, though, pain interferes with the pleasure of athletic endeavor. In today's News for Medicine, CNN's Dan Rutz explains how runners can get a leg up in that long battle against shin splints.
In that throng of vibrant humanity snaking its way through New York City last fall, Alita Spence lived her dream of running the marathon. Like many runners, Spence had become accustomed to pain in her lower legs. Athletes call it shin splints, but that catch-all term can be a sign of serious injury.
I ran the first 7 miles in severe pain. When I finished that evening, I woke up with excruciating pain, screaming, and from that point on, I knew that there was something severely wrong and had to seek medical attention.
Dr. Thomas Branch of Emory University explains shin splints is usually caused by inflamed tendons. A bone scan confirmed Spence had suffered something more. Here's the stress fracture. Nagging pain may be the most important clue because stress fractures start small. Standard x-rays seldom show anything wrong.
It's sort of like when you take a paperclip and you bend it, bend it, bend it, bend it, and just before it separates, you can feel it just before it separates. That's the stress fracture.
So the bone is weaker, even though it doesn't reveal any gross deformity.
Right, exactly.
Weakened bones can snap suddenly, so Spence learned to run in a special pool against the current for the several months it took to heal.
You know, the word of the 90s is cross-training. I know that most people who are long-distance runners are very addicted to running.
But Branch argues that fitness need not rely on a single sport. He says cross-training protects the body from what he calls overuse injuries.
Cross-training means integrating in several sports: running, swimming, biking, tennis, racquetball, baseball, so that you're not doing just one thing. How far are you running now?
I'm running about 3 or 4 days a week, 3 miles each day.
Spence has also learned to pay more attention to pain and equipment. Many are surprised to learn that shoes can protect against common shin splints because the tendon that's involved connects to the foot.
And it is really the shock absorber to your foot. It attaches to the arch of your foot, and every time you land on your foot, it kind of fires and holds your arch up.
I've learned to pay attention to my shoes. How many miles I'm putting on my shoes, and whether or not I have the proper shoes for the way I hit the ground.
Doctors say common shin splints are usually more annoying than dangerous, but they can mask more serious problems. That's why they advise runners with persistent pain should check in for a checkup. Dan Rutz, CNN Medical News.
What's happening in the NBA playoffs?
Big surprises. Phoenix Suns are about to be eliminated, but you can't tell it by their coach. When Joe Namath guaranteed a victory for his Jets before Super Bowl III, it had the ring of the incredible. When Paul Westphal last night guaranteed that his Phoenix Suns would come back to win this opening round series from the Lakers, it rang as hollow as his team has been so far in this playoffs. Westphal says, so we're down 2-0. We're not dead. We're going to win the series. Well, they have to do it in L.A., where they teach acting and where Vlade Divac apparently learned that craft very well. In Phoenix yesterday, Game 2, following a Laker upset Friday night, and the Lakers on a 13-2 run in the second quarter here. AC Green with the layup, and Westphal is seeing his Suns fade quickly. But in the third quarter, they roar right back. Charles Barkley with the slam, and they open a 10-point lead of their own. But with under 3 minutes to go in the game, the Lakers make it a new one with Worthy's three-pointer, tying things at 80. Don't leave them alone. Down the stretch, it would be this suddenly energized Lakers club that would pull off the upset again, taking a 2-0 lead in this best-of-5 opening series, threatening to become the first number 8 seed ever to beat a number 1 in an opening round. In the Stanley Cup playoffs, the Islanders weren't given much of a chance either until Mario Lemieux left the Penguins lineup again with back spasms last night. That sure gave the Islanders new life. Pittsburgh on the power play here, but Ray Ferraro goes on a breakaway the other way and scores the shorthanded goal to put the Islanders ahead to stay, leaving the lead to Glenn Healy to protect as they take a 1-0 lead in this series now, surprisingly enough. Lemieux's return is uncertain. Could be Game 2 tomorrow night. Could be a week from now, depending upon the back. To baseball now. What a season Barry Bonds is having for the Giants. His 8th home run of the year in the 6th inning gives San Francisco a 3-1 lead over the Expos at Candlestick Park. Everybody slap happy over the production he's giving the Giants so far, not just at the plate, but in the outfield, too. His power has always overshadowed great defensive skills. Look at the catch there. Saves a run. They go to the 11th inning, though, tied at 3. Man on second, first base open. The Expos elect to pitch to Bonds instead of walking him. Bad mistake. As it turns out, Bonds singles home the winner for their 6th win in a row. Let's roll through all the scores now. What an incredible finish to yesterday's Talladega 500. Rain forced a restart with 3 laps left, forcing everybody to bunch up and causing this unbelievable wreck for Rusty Wallace. Look at him get airborne as he's bumped by Dale Earnhardt. How do you survive a wreck like that? Well, Wallace limped away with just a broken wrist, nothing very serious at all. Apparently assorted bruises. He comes out of it. Ernie Irvan goes on to win the race. Rusty Wallace once again has bad fortune at the superspeedway. More sports in the 2 o'clock hour, Eastern hour here on CNN. Reed.
Right, Jim, you know, Donald Trump is challenging a U.S. government statute that makes it easier for Indian tribes to get casino licenses. The casino owner and developer has launched a civil lawsuit against the Interior Secretary Babbitt to force the government to change its administration of the law. Trump says the policy robs the states of tax revenues and jobs and also makes it hard for the state licensed casinos to compete.
Well, you know what they say about those rainy days and Mondays, they always get you down. Here's Flip Spiceland with the latest weather forecast. Flip?
We're having a big camera problem today, so we're going to try to do this, and you may not see me throughout this weathercast, but we're going to do our best. You can see the heavy cloudiness right in the middle of the country, and as Cheryl pointed out, indeed, there is a lot of drizzle and rain today on this Monday, but not a lot of heavy thunderstorm activity. As a matter of fact, the only thunderstorms we've seen at all have been across a portion of Arkansas, and if you look closely there at Arkansas, you can see the bright white cloudiness right down in here, and you watch it move to the north, and those are the heavy thunderstorms that we have seen today. But in fact, they have been diminishing throughout the morning hours, and they are not very heavy right now. So we'll just keep a lot of rainfall in here as there's a weather system moving to the east, but the whole weather system is weakening as it moves into the east. In the west, a stronger weather system moving in with some rainfall associated with it. We'll find snowfall all the way down the 4,000-foot level. As we go through the forecast weather maps, we'll get back to that in just one moment. But right now, let's take a look at the CNN color radar summary. You can see all of this rainfall, almost all of it light to moderate. The thunderstorms were in here, but now not much of that showing up. Here's the rain moving in through the northwest with what we'll call the new weather system, even down into northern California. And we'll have more and take a look at our forecast weather maps and our forecast weather map for Europe too right after this. Look at our European forecast weather map indicates that we have a cold front reaching from Scandinavia down through Poland all the way back to France. There are showers all along that frontal system. A low pressure disturbance that is right now developing off the coast of Portugal will move down into North Africa. And a new weather system moving from the Atlantic already spreading some rainfall into portions of Scotland. Look now at our forecast weather maps domestically. Here's the weather system in the middle of the country. It's had a few thunderstorms associated with it, as I mentioned earlier. Scattered showers all along that front, but that's actually a weakening weather system. Indeed, the showers are moving almost to the due north, but the whole weather system is moving to the east. Here's the new one coming in, rather interesting for this late in the season. Snowfall is expected down to about the 4,000-foot level. If that is an accurate forecast, we'll have more snow in the northern Sierra Nevada, as you can see indicated here in our forecast weather map. Look at this. By tomorrow morning, our weather system moving through the east is just a large area of low pressure, and it will continue to touch off showers as it continues to weaken moving through the east, so I don't think we'll see any severe weather associated with that. And as this weather system rolls on into the Rockies by tomorrow night, we'll see even more snowfall at the higher elevations. Right now, take a look at a few specific forecasts for cities around the nation and Canada for the remainder of the day. I now have to toss back to Reed Collins in Washington because Cheryl's camera is over here at the weather set. So, Reed, take it away.
All right, this has nothing to do with your problem, but a couple, maybe several alcoholic drinks a day could reduce heart attacks. There's a Boston doctor who studied 680 people and discovered those who had as many as 3 drinks a day suffered fewer myocardial infarctions. Doctors often warn of the various alcohol health risks, you know. The key here, though, would seem to be moderation and the way that alcohol may increase the blood levels of the so-called good cholesterol.
And in today's Food and Health Report, a childhood warning revisited and revised. According to dentists, the old admonition about sticky sweets ruining your teeth may be less than accurate. Details from CNN's Norma Quarles.
Those chewy candy bars, jelly beans, caramel candy apples kids love. Most people believe these sticky sweet foods harm the teeth because they stick longer than other foods. Scientists now say some non-sticky foods may actually stick longer.
Take a caramel, for example. A caramel is made out of sugar, and you put it in your mouth and it feels very chewy and sticky. But the sugar is soluble and it dissolves and it clears the mouth relatively quickly compared to something that has a cooked starch, for example.
Dental scientists say that bread, bagels, potato chips, things that don't seem sticky, stay in the mouth longer, causing dental cavities. It's not how it feels, they say, it's how long it takes to clear the mouth.
It's news to me, you know. I thought that I would definitely think that candy, especially chocolate and things like that, would be more harmful to teeth.
Even children believe that.
If I was a little girl, I ate a lot of chocolate and ruined my teeth. So now I have to go to a dentist and do those things.
Pediatric dentists warn, don't forget about good nutrition. What may be better for your teeth may not necessarily be better for your health.
We try to guide the parents into healthier foods, things that don't have empty calories.
And good nutrition should be combined with good oral hygiene starting at birth.
Don't use the nursing bottle as a pacifier, because then you're feeding the child continuously. It doesn't matter what's in the nursing bottle, whether it's a juice or a milk. Both of them contain sugar, and just a little bit of sugar is enough to make the bacteria make acid.
And we're just going to check all the grooves and make sure that everything's nice and healthy.
First thing that we tell the parents is that they've got to get in there and clean their children's teeth. It doesn't mean sending Johnny off to the bathroom with toothpaste and a toothbrush and letting him do it unattended.
For children to be cavity-free, dentists say teeth should be brushed twice a day with fluoride toothpaste, snacks limited to 3 a day, and children should drink lots of water to rid the mouth of foods, sticky and non-sticky. Norma Coral, CNN, New York.
Just ahead on NewsHour, some restaurants have found a rather novel way to tell the diner when the table's ready. They beep them.
Reed, you know how it is when you miss the maitre d's call when you're waiting in a crowded, noisy restaurant?
Well, usually that means some other diner gets your table and you just keep waiting. But there are some restaurants who found a 90s answer to the old problem, as CNN's Ann McDermott reports.
This woman in this restaurant is about to learn her table is ready. She's about to receive vibrations. No, she's not psychic. She just got buzzed by her beeper. A lot of restaurants, like Houston's and the Cheesecake Factory in Southern California, are using an electronic paging system to let their customers know when they can be seated.
You're going to feel it. They'll joke about vibrating. They'll put it on their neck and ask if it gives a good massage.
So they do. Well, anyway, it sure beats sitting around and waiting for the PA system to mispronounce your name. With a beeper, you can go anywhere while you wait.
Pretty cool.
But living in the 90s can get a little complicated. Is that the restaurant's beeper? No.
That's my beeper.
His beeper beeps, some blink, some buzz. Which do you prefer?
That's kind of a personal question, I think.
Well, this man's not shy. He says give him those good vibrations.
I asked for 3 others, but they wouldn't give them to me.
Customers like them, so do serving people at this Washington, D.C. restaurant. In the old days, the maitre d' here would jot down a brief description of a patron, and when his table was ready, send a waiter off in search of him. Imagine trying to find the man in the light shirt with a maroon tie in this crowd. No problem now, and no problem for the customers who can wander anywhere while they wait.
Well, sure. Well, from here you could go walk to the White House.
Of course, the president may not be there. He could be at his own favorite dining spot, an establishment that has yet to jump on the beeper bandwagon. Ann McDermott, CNN, Los Angeles.
The vibes say that's it for NewsHour. I'm Sharyl Attkisson at the CNN Center in Atlanta.
And I'm Reed Collins in Washington, and Sonia Friedman has word on just what's ahead on Sonia Live. Sonia.
Thank you, Reed. Is it possible that a beloved child can turn on a parent 30 years later, having just remembered unspeakable acts of sexual abuse? And is it possible that the accusations could be false? My question's next on Sonia Live.